What's up? It's your boy Carcino here, and finally, the TV show of all television shows, The Cosby Show. People was like, you got to do the truth behind The Cosby Show. How could you not do that? You did Family Matters before you did The Cosby's? Are you crazy? Soon as you did Good Times, you should have came right with The Cosby Show. I'm like, well, dude, first off, you don't donate to the page. I appreciate your passion, but you ain't donating to the page. So everybody who's been donating in the stream lab and leaving me messages, I appreciate it. And for those who don't know where that is, our super chat is in the description box, or people have been hitting me up on the Cash App. The name is Carcino on the Cash App. And now after that shameless plug, we go right to it. The Cosby Show. Alright, that's enough. So, in the 1980s, early 80s, I'm going to say 81, 82, this was a change for everybody. Blacks was on TV with shows, and they were doing their thing. But there were problems. Yeah, there were problems. Now, Bill Cosby was the funny man on all these different stand-up comedies and everything else, but Bill Cosby was having a hard time having a successful show. Yeah, can you imagine that? Besides Fat Albert, the rest of Bill Cosby TV careers wasn't really panning out. And his movie career was like, never really was a big movie guy. Now, for Bill, this show started to take a different turn. Because, see, Marcy Carsey and Tom Warner. So, Marcy Carsey and Tom Warner were basically relieved of duty from ABC. You know, ABC, they did Welcome Back Kotter back in the 70s. They had Mork and Mindy. They did Three's Company. But Three's Company was starting to lose its way when they lost Suzanne Summers. They lost her off the script and whatever, and her and Jack fell out, and that was it. And they brought in the other girl. The show changed. Mork and Mindy was tanking. Welcome Back Kotter was good in the 70s, but they were leaving. ABC was like, look, we've had a good run with you, but we're going in a new direction next year. So you need to decide on what it is that you want to do. So naturally, they did what all people do, go to another network. Now, Bill was working on his stand-up at the time. He was doing shows, doing stand-up, and was doing very little on television and film anymore. After Fat Albert and Cosby Kids and all that stuff was going on. So, the whole theme of the show came from Marcy Carsey and Tom Werner. They wanted to do a show with Bill. They wanted to work with him. They were fans. They seen him do his stand-up. They were in love with everything that he did. Bill Cosby didn't want. Everyone thinks Bill wanted to make him, a very son to show blacks and very successful careers. This wasn't true. The original treatment for the show, Heathcliff Huxtable was a limousine driver, and Claire Huxtable was an electrician. She was the mother and electrician. Can you imagine that? The Cosby Show with Bill Cosby, who owns a limo and drives around in a limo. And Claire Huxtable is an electrician in the house. I don't think that show would have worked like that. So his wife, Camille, my wife, Camille, she came up with the idea. She said, I got a concept. And I said, well, what you talking about, dog? So she came up with the idea of the mother being a lawyer and the father being a physician. And said that, they need to show blacks more in that type of role, as a family. And again, it worked. So they pitched the show with Bill Cosby being their star to the rival network of ABC, which was NBC. Now, if they'd have pitched this to ABC, ABC would have probably bit. But they went back and got him. And they got Bill Cosby. They went to NBC and took their company over there. They was very unhappy with ABC at the time. Now, the problem was casting. Bill and Carsey and Warner and everyone else who was in the casting department. This is where the productional problems were going to come into play. And I could see this was going to be a struggle for some people. Because you got Michael Leeson, Bill Cosby, and what's his name? Ed Weinberger, I think. And the rest of these casting, like the people who are making a decision on who's going to be there and what it should be. A lot of people thought Bill Cosby had a lot of control on the show. He did, to a certain degree. But he also knew that there is a business aspect behind it that has to be respected. Now, going into casting, when they've written this beautiful script out for the public and everyone's going into casting, they knew or had an idea of what the show was going to be. The show wasn't even really written out completely. It was an idea of what this show was going to be, but let's start reviewing some of these stars because we have to find young black actors. Some of these people have never acted before in life. And we're going to be asking a lot of them to sell this show. Because this show is going to be predominantly around the children in these teenage environments. So they went to the theater acts. They tried to find out the talent agencies of these young actors who had basically never acted before. Anyway, some was in school and all of these different instances was taking place, and things started to transform on the show. And we all know what the Cosby Show cast is. Right? When we see them, we know that's the Cosby Show. We see Bill Cosby, we see Phylicia Rashad, we see, Tempest, Lisa Bonet, Keisha Knight, and Malcolm Jamal Warner. They become household names to us. we've grown up with this family. We looked at them and said, wow, we knew enough about them to learn their real names. But this wasn't the Cosby Show. The Cosby Show was almost this. Right here, what you seeing right now. Steve Urkel was going to be Rudy. And I'm quite sure everyone knows this story by now because he told it. Okay? Malcolm Jamal Warner was going to be Cockroach. We know that story because he told it. But the only person who really won out their role completely was Tempest Bledsoe. Her role was really never challenged. She had a couple of people that auditioned that were very new, but she was basically a lock with her performance. They were all in agreement on Tempest. Lisa Bonet came on later, but she was going to be not on the show. Carl Payne was Theo. Right? Carl Anthony Payne was Theo. You had Jaleel White playing Rudy. Rudy was the name of the guy. Remember Rudy on the Fat Albert Show? So you got Rudy as the character. Jaleel White was playing Rudy. And you had Carl Anthony Payne playing Theo. And they were a lock for their parts. Like, people agreed that that should be Theo. Then, these are the stories you know. Then Tempest, she nailed her performance. Now, you're probably saying, who are these other two people? That person there is Phylicia Rashad. She won the rights. Okay, she won the right to be what was that? The oldest daughter, who at this time wasn't a part of the original script. They wrote her in later to be a permanent part of they wanted to have one child that was successful already to show that they have a successful family. That they had one daughter already in college doing her thing, which was Sandra. So she actually read for the part of Denise, but they were going to move her to Sandra. She was going to be Sandra. Layla Ricone. She was going to be Sandra on the show. Then the Denise character this is what they wanted in the beginning. Erica Gimple, who was on Fame, already on NBC in a contract for the show Fame. She was a hit on the show. They wanted her character to be Denise, and they was trying to see how her contract was with NBC and how she was going to work on the show. Like, is she staying or she's a character? How's her contract? So it ended up helping Erica Gimple because she ended up staying the whole ride. And she was just like, we can't lose her. That's the show. So we can't get Erica Gimple. But he's like, that's what I want. You know, Bill Cosby's like, I'm looking for a girl like that to be one of my daughters. I want someone who's opinionated, idealistic. Then, auditions came. And then there were some other girls, and Lisa Bonet came. And they loved the look of Lisa Bonet, and so did Bill. Bill's like, yeah, she has that look, passable look, and the way she comes off, and her style and everything else, is going to relate to a lot of teenagers. But, of course, input was put into this. A lot of politics was played behind closed doors when making selections. They were afraid of having a cast that's like too black. So this is where the business aspect was coming in. That Bill Cosby had selected Carl Anthony Payne. A lot of people don't know that he selected him to be. Bill Cosby selected him and said, "I like him. He's really good." And the producers said, "Carl Anthony Payne, yeah, this guy's incredible." So they wanted to see it one last time because they didn't like the audition that Malcolm Jamal Warner gave because he didn't know what they wanted. And when they gave it to him, it was like, we don't want that. And it was just, he was just so open to the ideas more than Carl Anthony Payne. It was a different type of energy between the two. It was more like a father son when Bill Cosby talked to Malcolm Jamal Warner. Plus, it's about the look too. So even though Carl Anthony is more skilled of an actor, he has natural gifts of it as an actor. You know, he's really, he's very confident too in himself. That also didn't work well for the character. A humbleness needed to be there for Theo that Malcolm Jamal Warner automatically possessed. That humbleness is what drew him to the role. And that's what Bill saw. And said, yeah, you're right. The producers. Plus, he looks like Bill when Bill was younger. He looks like Bill Cosby. When Bill Cosby was younger, he looked like Malcolm Jamal Warner. So it's very easy to see himself as Theo. Hold on. Don't black out on me. Now, the other person you looking at is Sheryl Lee Ralph. She was going to be the wife of Bill Cosby. That was Claire Huxtable. She was in the lead to be Claire Huxtable. That's right. Sheryl Lee Ralph is a singer, Broadway performer, and you knew her later on in her TV career. But she was a singer and famed performer doing Dreamgirls. We are Dreamgirls. Yeah, Dreamgirls is old. This is a play going back to the 80s. So, the Dreamgirls Broadway show. And Phylicia Rashad was on that show too. But the lead, matter of fact, she started off playing Dina in Dreamgirls. She was Dina, then Sheryl Lee Ralph came in and played Dina. And then she became the understudy to Sheryl Lee Ralph. Sheryl Lee Ralph had a reputation. She had an agent for singing and this, and all of these things happened. And boom, things blew up. She was not happy. She left and she went and started doing soap operas. Now, her sister is Debbie Allen from Fame, which is on NBC. So when Debbie Allen, she knows Bill Cosby, and she had just got married to Norm Nixon. And Norm Nixon and everyone else, they knew Bill. They were working on this show, and they were trying to inquire about Erica Gimple for Denise. And this is when the conversation came about Phylicia Rashad, her sister, playing the role of the wife. Because she was like, my sister and Bill he saw the Dreamgirls play, just like the Casey and everybody else, and they were interested in Sheryl Lee Ralph. She was on that same play. So they were like, oh, she was on the play. Well, we remember her. She was on the play. And they're looking at the headshots and everything. It's like, oh, she's drop dead gorgeous. It's like, this is the perfect wife. Like, Sheryl Lee Ralph is good, and she's attractive too, but, she's kind of too famous. We kind of need a new face. And, let's do the rating and let's see what happens. So they did the audition, and she was way more of a match than Sheryl Lee Ralph. Sheryl Lee Ralph came off as too, not more feminine. She was very strong. Her performance wasn't as as laid back as Phylicia Rashad's was. She was more loving, in other words. Now, Leela Rakan, who came from Cali, of course, she had graduated already from high school. They felt she was a little too old to be Denise. They wanted Denise to have a younger look starting out, and they thought that her body was like fully developing already because she was out of high school. So they were saying, well, let's try to move her character to Denise. I mean, to Sandra, from Denise to Sandra. And Lisa Bonet ended up winning out that role. They said, okay, we're going to go with a much younger Denise. Layla Rashawn could be Sandra. But the producers had another. It's like, we need to appeal to every household. Not just, we don't want this to be looked at by just black families. We got someone, that's more lighter. She's more Sandra LeBeau. They brought her in to read to be Sandra, and she was just gonna be a reoccurring role periodically throughout the show. But she was way more lighter than Lisa Bonet, and they thought picking her was great. But what the studio is looking at is for the market. Like when people watch this in international, when it goes into syndication and it's played overseas, they want to see people that they can relate to. They'll look at Sandra LeBeau and say, oh, she's white. She fits in a black family. No one's going to say anything about it. And then they'll watch the show. They'll see people that look like them and they just watch it, period. I don't know. It's crazy, but this is how the business works. And Bill knows how the business works. And he says, okay, let's see her. And she was really good. Like, as an actress, Chandra, to play the role of Sandra, he thought, okay. The Layla Rakan girl was better as the role, they thought. She had more of a personality, they thought. And, like, her performance was good. It was, like, playing with the other, like, working with the other cast, the other children. Sandra had to like find out who the character was, and as the show went on, and they decided to bring her back in fully, she was good to be with, mixing in with all the rest of the cast and the children, because she has so much experience as far as acting that they didn't want her to like, you know, overly shine over the rest of the cast. Now, let's go to the Rudy situation. Rudy was made to be a guy because of the simple fact Rudy was a male character and Jaleel White won this role 100%. And Bill was like, this was me. This kid was me, and the fact is, he didn't want to have Rudy be too young because dealing with child actors, you're dealing with a lot of parents and with rules and restrictions, and the studio was like, no, we got a son and we don't want to lose that connection with father and son. Theo should be the only boy and everybody else should be girls. They came to that conclusion, but they said Bill was fighting for Jaleel White. And the studio was fighting like, let's bring these girls in. And we've heard Jaleel White tell the story, but there's a part of the story in which he does not tell. Not like he purposely was doing it or things of that nature, like he was hiding this. Not the case at all. You see, you got to look at the time. They had decided early on that they were going to bring in another castmate. He knew because he was actually on the same show, ended up on the same show with with this actress, and I think her name was Eloise or something like that. But she was known as Jessica Jefferson, from the Jeffersons. She owned that role, and she played in Lethal Weapon. She was the little daughter on the show, and just incredible, incredible actress. And naturally, they had her audition to be Rudy. They was like, well, Rudy could be a woman, so they brought her in the audition against. Her name was Ebony. That's her name, Ebony Smith, and she was brought in to audition against Jaleel White. There was no Rudy at the time. It was Ebony Smith and Jaleel White. So they brought those two in to audition for the role, and when it was just Jaleel White. Then they brought in Ebony Smith, and she went against Jaleel, and she lost out the role to Jaleel White. And they were like, the studio chose to, go with Jaleel. So basically, they were told they're getting the role. It was done. It was casted. So that from that point on, he had the part. Rudy didn't come till later. She was a later added addition. They said, "Look, you got to see this kid." She had just come from doing The Last Dragon. Carl Payne was in the movie too. They did that role. Like, she was the little baby. She had a bit part in there. But they're like, this kid is adorable. She was in a commercial. She is so smart to be this young. Like, she's like 6 years old and she's incredible. Like, you've got to hear her. I mean, see her perform. And Bill was like, she's too young. I can't work with no little kid. She's like 4 or 5 years old. At the time, I think she was like maybe 4 or 5. They come in for the audition. Jaleel White hadn't seen her. Like, she wasn't like at the other auditions. She comes in there and off the call back or whatever, and she had did her audition when he wasn't there or something. So when they came in for the final audition that was in Burbank, California, they flew them all the way out there and did this final audition thing, and they told who was gonna be who, and basically just came out and said you, and you. Right in front of the other kids too. It was just really the wrong way to handle it. It was just it was hard for a lot of kids because imagine if you don't get picked. Yeah, it's great for those who got picked, but the ones who didn't get picked, that's crushing to have that done in front of your other peers. It's like embarrassing. Ebony Smith didn't have to go through that so much. But a lot of you guys never knew Ebony Smith was really going to be Rudy. She was the one that was the reason why I don't think her audition went well. She was too smart for the role. She was very fluent in English and Spanish, just like Phylicia Rashad. Very fluent. So, with this being said, now they have their cast set as Keisha Knight Pullman is Rudy. She blew Jamel White out the water when it came to the audition of Rudy because she had what he didn't have. He was great at his performance, but she was younger, she's cuter, she's adorable. She's like a little teddy bear that everybody wanted to hug and go, oh. And that's what they wanted. And it was the perfect casting, I must say. The perfect casting. Bill was amazed because her memory. she could remember lines, and like a real actor is like, wow, her memory is incredible. To be this young, her memory was impeccable. He was like, oh wow, this is amazing for her to be this size. So he was blown away by it. Now they're looking at the rest of the people involved, and they're looking like, hey, we might have something here. And they're like, okay. Uh-oh. Sorry about that. Now, they're looking like we have something here. The pilot hits, the show takes off. Boom. Like, it jumps all the way to number 3 in its first season. And the reason why it jumped off is because they've never seen a family like this, and the story and the writing was so based off of Bill Cosby's life experiences of what he did in his household with his children. Theo was based off his real son, Enos, and the fact that Theo suffered from dyslexia just like his son Enos did. And Enos' best friend ended up being, Carl Anthony Payne. He kept coming back and auditioning for parts. He told you that himself in his interview. And he ended up becoming Cockroach later on the show. Then him and Bill Cosby had a falling out, and basically he wasn't invited back to the show. No more. He was gone. So we'll talk about that at a later date. Now, Phylicia Rashad, who basically beat out Sheryl Lee Ralph, finally, after being beat out for her in Dreams Girls, now she's the mom. And the first pilot episode, they had her more like snapping and her character going off. Oh shoot, you ain't gonna be telling me what to do and this and that. And she was more not like the lawyer at home. So they only showed her really in the courtroom one time working a case, and that was for Sandra, you know. But the show worked because it really showed the family, all the characters really having something to do. It wasn't centered all around Theo, wasn't centered all around Denise, wasn't centered all around Rudy, it wasn't centered all around Tempest, who was Vanessa. But to me, I resonated more with Vanessa more than anybody, more than Theo. Vanessa was the one that was like me, because she was around our age. So what she was going through at school is like in grammar school and all this stuff is like what we were like seeing every day. Vanessa was in a whole different world. Theo and they were in high school, her and him and Denise, and Sandra was off to college. Rudy was just a little kid. So now the show first season, all these stories mean something. You see Vanessa and how she's dealing with boys in grammar school and having parties and liking a guy in her class, and her and her friends and what they're doing. It was more involvement in this first season with her and how her and her sister Denise, how they close they are, and Vanessa's more the rebellious one, being the middle child in the situation. So her and Denise is still in the house, and they share the room. So naturally, this happens when you have kids who share rooms. Next thing you know, they get old enough, they want their own room, they want their own privacy, and it's like, look, we don't have enough house for this, but they share a room, and Denise is like, I need my own room at first. They had great stories that revolved around what people and families went through in a household. So the show centered around a lot of different traits that we didn't see with African Americans. There wasn't a lot of violence on this show at all. Almost no violence was ever on the show. So right away, detractors of the show, always the black folks, once the Cosby Show was taking off during its heyday, it was being attacked by some of the black media for like basically whitewashing the black family, making this black family more whitish. So they came in there. It's like, well, you see, this is not a typical black family. This is not gonna happen. They're trying to make the black family white. Black families aren't white. So they went through a lot of scrutiny, and they were the #1 show in the world at this time. The second season, they boomed all the way to the top to #1. So when they were the #1 show, this comes with the scrutiny. People trying to tear it down and, keep blacks from watching it and going against the show and all of these different things. So now you're in a different situation. You're in a different box. You're seeing people attack you now. You're at the top. So naturally, they were saying, Cosby Show don't tackle real issues like that goes on in the black community. We're not all with the jazz clubs. We didn't all go to fraternities. We all didn't go to Spelman or Howard. And, where's the real struggle with the black family? We don't see any relative things because they use common sense. And what people didn't realize is that a lot of things that happen in a black household is not like what happens in all black households. You had the show that showed you all the other stuff that happens in a black household. Now you're going to see what happens in the other black households that you don't see. That there's another way to handle a situation. And that's what you didn't learn a lot. A lot of people use this way, a lot of people use another way. And what they saw was, okay, all right, I get it now. And what started to form was the fact that sorry about that. They use dialogue. They use reasoning and dialogue to diffuse situations, to settle problems, to show you that, yeah, this is a situation similar to yours. But here is the solution to this problem. Here is the answer that you've been seeking. Let's try to find this answer and keep this in perspective. This is where we need to be. So, with that said, the Cosby Show was going to have a controversial scene that was, they were going to have a controversial scene with Vanessa. Vanessa's character was going to sleep out all night with her friend. They were going to go out to a nightclub. And they were going to, go to some concert, whatever, and they end up sleeping outside and all this stuff to go wait for tickets. And they lied and went somewhere. So the family finds out Vanessa snuck off, and they found her. And in the original script, they said that she struck Vanessa. This did not go over well, but people was like, but it was leaked out to the general public, like, you're not going to want to see this one. They finally finna discipline a kid on the Cosby Show. So everybody's like, oh man, Vanessa gonna get hit. Now, what y'all don't know, as I told you before, is that Vanessa came to my grammar school. I didn't know she was born in Chicago. I didn't know any of these things till she came to our class. Our classroom was one of the classes selected. I don't even know why. We was a bad bunch. I'm like, this class, you in the wrong room. How did this mistake happen? So it was close to the end of. I think we had a bunch of smart people in our class. They were female. The rest of us, we cared about Transformers, and we cared about The Last Dragon and The Cosby Show. So yeah, I guess it was the right class. So She come in there. She had on some sunglasses, some real big sunglasses in the 80s. She's sitting down and she's just like, and the girl was like, she's come here to talk to you. And she looked like, I do not feel like being here right now. Then she answered the questions and they already groomed us to call her Tempest when she came in there. It's like, her name is Tempest. Tempest Bledsoe. Class members still couldn't remember it. And as soon as they can't answer a question, I'm the only one that called her by her name. Everybody else, when I asked my question, everybody else was asking her and calling her Vanessa. Vanessa, she was answering anyway. She realized what it is. But she was like, yeah, I do schoolwork just like you guys. But I have to do it, while I'm, on the show. I got tutors there. I take my tests. But, I'm in the grammar school just like you guys. So we were like, wow, Vanessa's in school just like us. But now she's got to do, now she's got to do her schoolwork on the set. This is crazy. So it was something like, we had Vanessa here. Then we was in the after school program. So she was there when the school was over. She was still at the school. So I saw her again in the after school program. And that's why they have a photo. I need to go back to the school to see if they still have that photograph up there of me and Vanessa. And it was one other person. But that was the photo. I'm in that photo. I'm like, I got to go back to the school to see if they got that picture. Because I definitely was in that photo. It was just 3 people in that photograph. Because I was definitely in that after school thing. Now, sorry for that sad track story. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Sorry about it. You can always skip. So now, the show episode airs with Vanessa. And she walks up to her like she's going to hit Vanessa. And goes, go to your room. When she tried to talk back, she runs up like she was finna hit Vanessa and said, go to your room. And she went. Now, they said that that was probably the greatest thing the Cosby Show didn't do. Had she hit Vanessa, that would have ruined that show. It would have destroyed everything they built. Everything would have been a farce. All this was just the way they were just putting on a show and masking who they really were. It would have been torn apart. It would have went against the characters of what they were, the personalities of the characters they were portraying, and that was it. It would have just destroyed everything. So the foundation was laid. You don't destroy the foundation just for a scene, to appease a couple of idiots at home. Stay with the structure of the show. You have a #1 show. It's working. The episodes are great. Don't rock the boat. Now, the Cosby Show was thriving. Then problems ensued. Um, and the problems were people were trying to see, okay, what are we going to do now? What are we going to go from here? First 3 seasons, amazing. From the 4th season, you started to see a little distance. With the 4th season, you started to see some change. I say the 4th season was where things started to change, and it wasn't for the better. The 4th season was good, just not as much. And the writing they were becoming like stalemated almost. Like 4th and 5th seasons were iffy and dicey at best. And the reason why is because they were going in a direction that was, I want to say it was, they were adding characters because a lot of people didn't really gravitate to the Sandra character. So by bringing her on full time, and they brought in Elvin, her husband, full time, and that started in season 4, and it kind of took away a little bit from the show. Having Elvin on as full time was not a good idea at that time. He should have just had a recurring role. You started to see more stories around them, and it was taking away a lot from the children. Like definitely Vanessa. Vanessa characters suffered because of this. Added characters, and definitely Rudy. The character of Rudy started to suffer after this. And the show went on, and changes started to happen. People were like, well, the Cosby Show's good, but, it's just the same old, nothing's going to really happen. And people were being very hard on the show. I remember that. So when people were like, okay, they're getting tired of the Cosby Show, I'm like, well, they're tired of the Cosby Show. Then, like, what are they even here for? Because the Cosby Show is incredible. But when you start in like season 4, you're seeing the lag, you're seeing the sag in the writing department a little bit with the storylines and the directions, and you're adding new things, and people are aging, and that's becoming a problem. So Denise, you know what happened there? You're losing Denise. She's going out rebellious, trying to start a career outside of all of this. That leads to problems. So Rudy started to get more of the accolades, and once Rudy started getting more of the accolades, things started to change. Show started to become like more gimmicky. Then to me it was incredible. They had brought people in there that had something to do with civil rights movement, jazz, poets, all these guests, Dizzy Gillespie, all these great legends and great minds on this show was brought on the show as guests, and they all contributed something, and I thought it was incredible. Um, to me, it's one of the best family shows ever made, and definitely it's one to be like cherished and remembered. Now we've talked about what happened with Lisa Bonet leaving the show and coming back and having a baby and going to do a different world. They were already going to spin her off to a different world. Like they're like, look, we finna send Denise to college, do a spinoff show. They tried to do another spinoff show off a guest on the show, and that didn't work. So the Vanessa spinoff was going to be something worth it. That was supposed to create more of an opportunity for the children, because now they're going to bring Sandra on full time, but losing Denise and putting her on that show, and losing, the different world's going to do what great, but Denise had a bunch of guys following her. They liked Denise. High school guys thought she was gorgeous. They loved her style. She had hairstyles, everything she was doing. They gravitated to Denise. Vanessa is the one we gravitated to because she was in grammar school, like we were in grammar school. So everybody had someone they related to. Theo was like, oh man, high school dudes and the girls in high school, they like Theo. And it just fit. Everything fit like a glove. But when the show started adding characters, and the character who ended up getting lost in the shuffle was Keisha Knight Pullman's character of Rudy. So when they started talking about Rudy's character, and after the fourth season, they started mixing her up with Bud, and they brought him in as a as a supporting character who was like reoccurring on the show. They were like, oh, this is a good thing to have her going back and forth with him. And these two are going to end up dating and becoming boyfriend and girlfriend. But it was funny having them on the show and seeing them do this during that time. But during season 5 and 6, Rudy's growing up. She's now like 12 and she's got that kid weight. She's big and she's not the little adorable Rudy anymore. And they made her name Rudith. She's Rudith. I was like, Rudith. All right, well, all right, whatever. So Rudy Huxtable, that's what she just became, Rudy. But they brought in Olivia and made her a full-time character, Raven Simone. Raven Simone was adorable. She was smart. She was another Rudy, and she was so adorable. So this was going to reboost and rejuvenate the show, bringing her on and playing the character Olivia. And once that happened, the show did not do very well. It did not. It did. It was still the number one show, but barely. Like, completely barely. New shows that came on that was more like realistic TV, like Roseanne, was gaining big traction. Everybody wanted to see that real reality white show. Like, show the real white families. Roseanne. People like, I like this show. This is like my house. I hate being at home, but I love watching Roseanne. So Roseanne was gaining ground. All these shows was gaining ground as the Cosby Show was getting older, and it was just overcrowded with people. And it was sad because the show like this wasn't meant to run forever. Once the kids got grown, it was time for them to go do their own thing. But I was very happy that they were able to bring, and get all these people. And we watched them grow, like on our own television screen. Just watched them grow up, and we felt like we were part of that family. But by season 7, things had run its course with the show. I mean, the show was pretty much done. I think they knew by season 7, which was probably, I think, the worst season. The last season I felt was better than season 7. Season 7 to me was like probably one of the worst seasons they had as far as the show. And that's when they brought in, it was all new characters. Erica Alexander came in there to try to spice things up. And Lisa Bonet came back for a little bit, and she was gone. And after season 7, she left completely. And I mean, the show just, I don't know. You know how things come to an end? I won't blame Erica Alexander. Her character is Pam. It's just that when you have her on there and her boyfriend and everything, it just wasn't the Cosby Show. No, it was just something else entirely different. And they showed all these different things going off, and her and Clyde, and I'm like, well, we didn't grow up with knowing her, and she just on the show, and the show's about her, and it just wasn't, it's totally different. Totally different. By this time, they realized it was time to bring the show to a halt. They ended with Theo graduating from college. They talked to Denise on the phone. They couldn't bring her back for the final episode, and that was just that. And the show is the show. That's it, man. I mean, I love this show. Love the Cosby Show. I always will. Now, whew, it's about an hour. Yeah, I'm tired, hungry, and sleepy, all in the same sentence. Y'all have a great day. Thank you for listening. Hope you love the video. Definitely subscribe, hit the notification bell. Make sure your phone is eligible to get notifications. Definitely hit me up on the Cash App or hit the donate button in the Streamlab. That's our super chat if you appreciated the video. Thank you very much, man.